Okay, so if you recall, we dedicated last week's class to Yom Yerushalayim, and I showed you that I searched the Zemer Reshet site, the one that we've been using throughout the class, in order to locate both the words as well as musical performances.
Dr. Sokolow, I think you might be on mute. No?
I hear him.
I'm just not hearing. I'm sorry then. Sorry, I'll
We
figure it
hear
out.
you.
Okay. Again, so I showed you that on the Zemer Reshet site, if you put in the word Yerushalayim into the search line, it turned up no fewer than 75 different songs that are about, or at least contain, something about Yerushalayim. So I did the same thing this week for Torah, and the results relative to Yerushalayim were somewhat disappointing. In fact, as you'll see, some of the things that turned up as songs, including the word Torah, are not intended for Shavuot, but are intended, I guess, for a reasonably related occasion, and that is for Simchat Torah. So indeed, we're going to have some songs this morning that celebrate Torah, some of them particular to Shavuot, others celebrating Torah in a more general fashion. And then at the end, we'll look at a couple of songs that are specific to the holiday of Shavuot and to the tradition of associating Shavuot with Bikurim, with the first fruits. Okay, so with that, let's go straight to the source sheet. And indeed, the very first song, as you can see, is even called Simchat Torah. And that would seem to indicate that it was written for the holiday of Simchat Torah, although one could take the word Simchat Torah in the more generic form as the joy of Torah. And it is in fact the oldest such song that I was able to locate. It seems to have been written, or at least brought to the attention of the public, as early as 1907. And here are the words. And one of the reasons that I chose it is, as you see in the refrain, in the stanza that appears both in the right and left-hand columns, there's a word that no one is able to hear. I mean, no one is able to identify. I tried several times, really couldn't tell what the word was. And I'm in good company because neither could the experts who put the song sheet together. So I invite you, if indeed you think that you have identified the missing word, by all means, you can let me know and I'll be glad to fill it in. Okay, so let me... I'll even offer to play it a second time to give you another chance to see if you can catch the word. It just doesn't help. The words, as you see, is Simchat Torah L'Kulanu. Again, it's either the holiday of Simchat Torah, or it is Torah is a source of joy for everyone. Torah hi chayenu. Torah, of course, is our life. Eitz Chayim Hilamachazikim Ba, a pasuk that we use whenever we take the Torah in and out of the Teva. Ditzah, joy, simcha, rejoicing, b'simchat HaTorah. Something another on every generation, simcha dein sof, an unending source of joy. Simchat Torah, simchatenu, again, hakos narima b'mishteh, and again, it could either be the kos of kiddush, if indeed it is for simchat Torah. Kol sameach yavo po elenu, everyone who is joining in the celebration will join us, ulachayim po kos nishteh, and we will all drink a l'chaim together. Okay. The next one is a little more specific. At least when you hear the tune, you'll see the specificity of it. It's called Matan Torah, which again would indicate that it was written specifically for Shavuot. The tune is called Mesorti, a traditional tune. And when I begin to play it, I think you'll recognize it. I don't want to give it away, but in case there are those of you who don't recognize it, I'll fill it in afterwards. The words are as follows. As then, at the time that the Torah was revealed, Kol ruach lo richefa, even the wind wasn't blowing. Tzipor shamayim, birds lo tziftzefa, didn't chirp. Pavraba'achu, cows lo ga'ata, weren't lowing. Kivsa ba'eder, sheep lo pa'ata, weren't bleeding. Shoshan ba'perach, flowers lo parachu, stopped blossoming. Umei hayam, and the waves in the sea, shaktu v'nachu, were calm. Malachei marom, even the angels in heaven, lo sharu, did not indulge or engage in their usual habit of singing songs of praise to God. Kadosh, kadosh, being the words that, at least traditionally, are recited by the angels in God's presence. Heim lo amru, they did not recite it at this juncture. Kol ha'olam, everything in the universe, kulo shataklo, was silent. The kol shofar, halach hazaklo, and the sound of the shofar that preceded Matan Torah went and was increasing in strength. As, at that moment, when everything in nature was silent, Natan elet Torah, that's the moment that God chose to deliver the Torah, Zoha Kedosha, Zoha Tehorah, the holy and sacred Torah. Now, the words themselves are related to a midrash. Let me share the screen with you for a moment so you can see those words. Okay, if you see the very top of the page, right? It's a midrash from Shemot Rabbah. It's a midrash on the book of Shemot that accompanies the text of Matan Torah. Amar Rabbi Abahu b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. And if the citation is as follows: Kshenatan HaKadosh Baruch et HaTorah, that when God revealed the Torah at Mount Sinai, Tzipor lo tzavach, birds didn't chirp. Of lo parach, they weren't flying. Shor lo ga'az, it said oxen weren't lowing. Ofanim lo afu, the heavenly creatures were not moving about. Srafim, again, the heavenly creatures, lo amru kadosh kadosh, they even ceased their usual songs of praise before God. Hayam lo nizdazea, the sea was completely tranquil. Habriot lo diberu, creatures, human and animal, were silent. Ella, so what was there? Ha'olam shotek u'macharish. It was such a momentous moment in history that all of nature, all living creatures, and all inanimate objects were so impressed by the fact that God was about to reveal the Torah to the Jewish people that they all stood silently in anticipation. The other source that was included for today is just a small selection from a recent book of mine called Timely Words. And in it there is a chapter. Let me see if I can get it up here. Just very quickly. Yeah, here it is. In it there is a chapter for the holiday of Shavuot that's called The World in Suspended Animation. And that indeed is a collection of sources such as this from the different Midrashim and Agadot that talk about the anticipation with which all of creation greeted the revelation of the law at Har Sinai. Okay, back now to our own sources. And you see before you again the words, and okay, and here's the tune.
ציפור שמיים אלוהו צפצפה, פרה באח ולא געתה, כבשה בעדר לא פעתה, אבים בשחק לא עברו,
Little difference here in the words.
לא אמרו, חיות ביער לא צווחו, גלי הים שקטו ונחו, כל העולם כולו שתק לו, וכל שופר הלך חזק לו, אז אל נתן את התורה, זו הקדושה, זו הטהורה.
So in case you didn't recognize the tune, it's considered a traditional tune because it's the tune to which we traditionally put to the words of Akdamot, that medieval Aramaic poem that is read on the first morning of Shavuot prior to the reading of the Aseret HaDibrot. So what we have here is a combination of words that are drawn from different Midrashim and Agadot, describing, as I said, the anticipation that greeted Matan Torah, and it's put to the tune of Akdamot, which is the poem that we read on Shavuot in anticipation of hearing the Aseret HaDibrot. I should also point out something.
It's also the tune for Kiddush and Shalosh Regalim.
Pardon?
It's also the tune for Kiddush and Shalosh Regalim.
That's news to me, but I'm delighted to hear it. Thank you. I should also point out something about the author, Levin Kipnis. Levin Kipnis is pretty much the closest thing that not just the people in the land of Israel, but the Jewish people in the 20th century came to Dr. Seuss. Levin Kipnis is perhaps Israel's best known and most beloved composer of poems and lyrics for children and for children's songs. Like most of the composers we've been talking about over these last weeks, he was born in Russia and made Aliyah, as it were, at the age of 19 in 1913. Where he became a student in the Bezalel Academy and was able to realize his life's ambition of producing children's books. He was born into a family, I think he was one of 12 children. His father was a Shaliach Tzibur, and that may be part of what influenced him. And he himself, in order to supplement the family income, became a sofer stam, that is to say that he wrote mizuzot as a way of earning some extra money. So he had a bit of a talent in calligraphy and perhaps even as an artist as well. And he combined the two talents after his education in the Bezalel Academy to, as I said, to become essentially Israel's equivalent of Dr. Seuss. Okay, the next song is one that we actually listened to very briefly on a prior occasion. But again, it's one of the few songs that came up with the focus on Torah. So I thought that it wouldn't do us any harm to repeat it. Eretz Yisrael b'li Torah. If the land of Israel were without Torah, he kaguf b'li neshama, then it would be like a body that was deprived of its soul. I may have made this point, may have pointed this out when we looked at it previously. I may not have, and that is that I did find in researching it a note that you see that the date of composition is given as 1929. 1929, as you may recall, was a year in which there was considerable trouble in the land of Israel, particularly in the city of Hebron, where unfortunately many Jews were killed in riots. And it's very possible that this song was actually written in a way to commemorate the fact that, at least in Hebron, many, if not most, of the people who were killed and who suffered during the riots were yeshiva students and their families. Okay. The next one, dating also perhaps even from the 1920s, because as you can see, the words were written by Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Cook, who died, if I'm not mistaken, in 1935 or thereabouts. So it's likely that this too was written perhaps in the 1920s, though it's not connected to any specific historical event. It's known by its title as Shir HaEmunah, the song or the poem of faith. Rabbi Cook, of course, was the first Ashkenazic chief rabbi of British mandatory Palestine, and he's considered one of the founders of religious Zionism in the land of Israel. And the words go as follows. Po, here, in the land of Israel, Na'avod Surenu, we will serve or worship our rock, that is God. Bechedva, in joy. Birnana, in happiness. Alon na'alel galenu, and we will have the opportunity to go up to Jerusalem as pilgrims. Shalosh pamim bashana, on each of the pilgrimage festivals. Alon na'alel galenu, again we will go up to Jerusalem on the festivals. Chai, 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 hu go aleinu, because we believe that our redemption is at hand. La'ad, forever, chaya bilvavenu, there lives in our hearts. Ha'emunah ha'ne'emana, the true belief. Linchol shuv nachalatenu, that we will once again inherit the land that belonged to us in the past. Av hamon kana, the land that was purchased on our behalf by our ancestors, Abraham in particular. Linchol shuv nachalatenu, again to be secure in our inheritance. And the refrain, chai, 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 hu go aleinu, again, the imminence of our redemption. Torah chayim chem datenu, Our desire is for a Torah that will give us life and that will direct our lives. Mipi Elyon nitna, Torah that was given to us directly by God himself. Netzach hi nachalatenu, and from that we will inherit our land in perpetuity. Mimidbar matana, and this is a play on words. It could be mimidbar matana in the literal sense that the land of Israel contains arid portions like the Negev. And yet we consider that part of our inheritance, and we therefore consider that part of the gift that God gave us. But on the other hand, the Midrash takes the words mimidbar matana, which happen to be two consecutive words in the Torah, as referring to a gift that God gave us in the Midbar. And of course, the greatest gift that God gave the Jewish people in a Midbar, of course, would be the Torah that was given to the Jewish people in Midbar Sinai. And again, the refrain, Netzach hi nachlatenu, we will enjoy our inheritance in perpetuity. Chai, 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 hu go aleinu. And again, the repetition of the theme of the imminence of our redemption. And bit of a musical beginning, but then the singing comes in. The next two songs actually go together. Not surprisingly, if you see, they were written by the same author. They were both written by the late Rabbi Neria, whom we've encountered previously, the founder of Yeshivot B'nai Akiva, a student himself of Rabbi Kook. And basically what we'll hear is a performance that combines the words of both of these songs. The first one is called Me'aholei Torah. You may recall that the Torah tells us about our patriarch Jacob, that he was an ish tam, which either means a quiet person or it means a person of integrity, and it describes him as a Yoshev Ohalim. The pshat of Yoshev Ohalim means that he was a shepherd, because shepherds don't live at home in houses, they live out in the fields in tents so that they can be with their flocks. But the Midrash says that Yoshev Ohalim is a reference to Torah students. And the Ohel is become synonymous with the Beit Midrash, with a place of Torah. Therefore, Me'ahole Torah is a way of celebrating the Torah and celebrating people who devote themselves either full-time or even part-time or even as leisure time to the study of Torah. And the words are Me'ahole Torah b'shadmot amal, combining Torah study and work in the fields. You remember that the previous song that we saw written by Rabbi Neria was about Torah va'avodah, the combination by religious Zionists of Torah study and commitment to Torah values on the one hand, and pursuing agriculture on the other hand. So here, Me'ahole Torah, from the Beit Midrash, as it were, B'shadmot amal, and from the fields of the kibbutz, Nakuma hanoah nakum v'nig'al, the youth will arise and will greet its redemption. Ba'torah nichboch, the instrument with which we will persevere is the Torah. Haaretz nacharosh, will work the land. Kadima hanoar goel ha'am, and he invites the youth, which he calls the goel ha'am, the redeemers of the Jewish people, kadima, to go forward. Yisgeg dor tza'ir, a new generation will grow, bakfar, both in the towns, uva'ir, as well as in the cities. Yagbir ma'amatz, it will strengthen its efforts. Yitna'er vakam, it will awaken, it will arise, and it will stand up straight. Od yizal hapeleg v'yishtof hagal, water, the streams will come, the streams will go. Meretz alumim yarkia el alim, the vigor or vitality of youth will rise. Yesha ufedut tohar yaldut, again, Yesha, salvation, pedut, redemption, tohar yaldut, as a virtue of the purity of youth. B'choach ba'omed zoha te'udah, again, in strengthened by their devotion to the Jewish tradition. Yelchu revavot b'darchei avot, will enable thousands or tens of thousands to move on in the paths of their ancestors. Yakimu chayei Torah va'avodah, and again, the devotion to a life that combines both Torah study as well as agriculture. And to that, there is a refrain added from a different song of Rabbi Neria that again is devoted to Torah va'avodah. The words clearly Torah, Torah va'avodah, Torah study, work, labor, manual labor. She'ifat, she'ifat b'nei Akiva. That is the aspiration of religious Zionists. Aleh, to go up either to the land of Israel or within the land of Israel to simply move forward, uvenei, and to build the land. Lamad, to study. Avod, to work. Aleh, again, to go up. Uvenei, and to build. Aleh ba'Torah, the instrument or the medium for ascending is Torah. B'nei, the medium for building is avodah, manual labor. And again, it repeats the refrain that Torah va'avodah, Torah study combined with manual labor. Shivat b'nei Akiva is the aspiration of religious Zionists. And I'll let you in this time because it's a video. So you can look at the words on your own, or you can just simply follow along. Okay. I must tell you that when I learned this song as a youngster in Bnei Akiva, it was taught to me slightly differently. It was taught to me with the accent on the final syllable, which of course is the proper way in which most of Hebrew is pronounced. Most words in the Hebrew language are what we call milorah. The accent is on the final syllable, rather than being mila'el, in which the accent is on the final syllable. Therefore, you heard all these people singing Torah, Torah, va'avodah. And I was taught that the proper way to sing it is Torah, 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 va'avodah. Right, with the accent, as I said, on the final syllable rather than on the penultimate syllable. And they sang She'ifa, She'ifat, Bnei Akiva, and I was taught to sing She'ifa, She'ifat, Bnei Akiva, but that notwithstanding, pretty much all the same. Okay. Coming back now, we move into the holiday of Shavuot, and here is, of course, everybody's favorite from Hebrew Jewish grammar school, whatever it was, a cheder, a yeshiva, a Hebrew day school, celebrating the Bikurim, Salenu al Ktefenu, our baskets filled with first fruits are on our shoulders. Rashenu Aturim, we're wearing, as it were, crowns on our heads. Miktzot haaretz banu, we've come from all the four corners of the land of Israel. Hevenu bikurim, and with us are the first fruits. Mihuda, mishomron, we've come from Judea, from Samaria, min ha'emek, from the plains, min ha'emek va'galil, the northern plains, the southern plains. Panu derech lanu, clear the road for us. Bikurim itanu, we have priority because we're carrying the bikurim. Hach, 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 batof, beat the drum. Chalel bechalil, and play the flute. You can see again the author is Levin Kipnis. So again, you can see that this is one of the many songs, poems and songs that he wrote specifically for Jewish children in the land of Israel. Sadenu v'ganenu, our fields, our gardens, hivshilu yevulim, are now ripening, the fruits are ripening. Kramenu, our vineyards, makshotenu, the fields in which we grow cucumbers. Bikru prich hilulim, again, they've borne their first fruits, the first produce. Te'enim tapuchim, figs and apples, anavim ushkedim, grapes and almonds. And again, panu derech lanu, you've got to yield to us, we get priority. Bikurim itanu, because we're bringing the first fruits. And again, the hach batov, chalel bechalil, beat the drum and play the flute. Matovu ma'agalenu, our circles, if indeed we pause along the way to dance. Mayafu haturim, or our columns when we are marching, are all well organized. Zimrat haaretz lanu, because we are carrying the Zimrat haaretz. You may remember the very, very first class that we had, when I told you that I had called it tentatively Chumi Zimrat haaretz biklechem, to take along with you something called Zimrat haaretz. It's a phrase that our father Yaakov used in speaking to his sons before they went down to Egypt. And the word Zimrat haaretz usually means things that are harvested in the land of Israel. The verb zayin mem resh in Hebrew means also to cut fruits off a tree. But it also means to sing. And therefore there's a play on words. Zimrat haaretz, again in the context in which it appears in the Torah, is referring to things that grow on the trees in the land of Israel, but it could be taken also as a reference to the songs of the land of Israel. So here we have Zimrat haaretz lanu in both of those senses, in the sense of the first fruits, as well as in the sense that all of this is taking place in song. Hevenu bikurim, and again, the first fruits. Migolan, mibashan, from the furthest reaches of the land of Israel to the north. Min hanegev ha'yarden, into the furthest reaches of the land of Israel to the south. And again, panu derech lanu, clear the way. Bikurim itanu, we're carrying the first fruits. Hach batov, beat the drum, chalel bechalil, and play the flute or the chalil. And here, the song. Who shall we listen to? I know, why don't we listen to Geula Gil? Now, if you recall from just a few moments ago, the previous song that we saw that was written by Levin Kipnis incorporated the midrash about how all of nature was silent and immobile in anticipation of Matan Torah. And I gave you a little bit of Levin Kipnis's background, that his father was a Shaliach Tzibor, that he himself for a time was a sofer writing mezuzot. He attended a cheder as a child, and therefore it's not surprising that he was familiar with midrashic and Agadic folklore. And this is another illustration of it. Let me share with you here we go. Okay. The words to Salenu al Ktefenu, right? Carrying the baskets of fruit on our shoulders, Rashenu Aturim, and we're wearing crowns, and saying something about Panu Derech, make way. All of this is a derivative of a Mishnah. The Mishnah in Masechet Bikurim, right? That part of the Mishnah that is devoted to the holiday of Shavuot, at least agriculturally, it describes the processions in which people would bring their Bikurim from wherever they lived in the land of Israel to the Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem. And it says, Hakrovim, those who were nearer to the city of Jerusalem, Niviyim ha'te'enim v'ha'anavim, they would bring figs and grapes. Harachokim, those who lived at a greater distance, Niviyim grogrot v'tzimukim, because they lived at a distance, they wouldn't try to bring fresh fruit because they might got delayed along the way. So they brought dried figs and dried grapes, that is to say, raisins. And here's a description of the procession. Hashor olech lifnehem. The procession was led by an ox. The karnav mitzupot zahav, whose horns were gilded, were coated with gold. Va'ateret shel zayit brosho, and it was wearing a crown of olive leaves from a branch from an olive tree. Hechalil makel ifnehem, and a flautist, as it were, would precede them. That is, somebody playing the chalil would go at the head of the line of march. Ad shemagiyim karov liRushalayim, until they came within the vicinity of the city. Higiyu karov liRushalayim, and when they approached the city, shalchu lifnehem, then they would send a messenger out to tell the people of Jerusalem that they were approaching. V'itru et bikureihem, and they would adorn the fruits that they were carrying. And then the nobles of Jerusalem would come out to greet them. Hapachot, Hasganim, Hagizbarim, all of these different officers and officials of Jerusalem and officials of the temple. Yotzim Lekratam would come out to greet them. Lefichvod hanichnasim hayu yotzeim, and again there was some sort of a protocol that dictated the greetings. And as they passed through the streets of Jerusalem, people would stop at their work and greet the people who were coming with the bikurim. And the greeting was Anshe Hamakom Ploni, our brothers, people from wherever they would be, Tel Aviv, Beersheva. Well, no Tel Aviv, obviously, in the days of the Beit HaMikdash. Batem L'Shalom, there would be words of greeting. So you can see again that the song Salenu Al Ktefenu is based upon the description that the Mishnah provides of the processions with which the first fruits were brought in. I also have a bit of a note, a linguistic, historical note. The phrase that appears in the song, if you recall, is Hach Batov, beat the drum. And that seems to make sense because that's how you get sound out of a drum, by beating it, right? Then it says, Chalel bechalil. Now, what does it mean to Chalil the Chalil? So that's a curious thing. So I take us back to the description of the crossing of the sea, where after we have the Shirat Hayam, the song of the crossing of the sea, there is kind of like an addendum to it. And it reads, Vatikach Miriam Hanaviyah Achot Aharon et Hatof biyada, that Miriam, the sister of Aharon, and also the sister of Moshe, took a tof, a drum, biyada, okay, Vatetzena Kol Hanashim Achareha, and all the other women followed her, bitupim, evidently the plural of the word tof, okay, so they too took up drums, uvimecholot. Now this is the curiosity. Almost all English translations of the word mecholot translated as though it meant a dance, that the women took drums and they went out dancing, okay? It's interesting that Saadia Gaon in the 10th century, one of the earliest translators of the Torah, in this case into Arabic, understood the word mecholot very differently. He translates the word mecholot, as you see the very last word on the last line highlighted in yellow, as tanabir. Tanabir is another form of a musical instrument. It may or may not be related to the word tambourine. Therefore, according to Saadia, the women may or may not have danced, but it's clear that each of them took up a musical instrument, either a tof, which would be a musical instrument which you beat in order to produce a sound, or perhaps a different kind of a musical instrument which you shake in order to produce a sound. Why would a tambourine, or why would something resembling a drum be called a mecholot? For the same reason that the word for flute is chalil. The word chalil simply means hollow, and it can be used to describe any kind of an instrument that belongs to the family called reeds. It could be a flute, it could be an oboe, it could be a clarinet, it could be the chalil, okay? Therefore, when the Mishnah, and you look at the second line of the Mishnah at the word that's highlighted in yellow, when the Mishnah says, Hechalil makeh lifneihem, how do you beat a chalil? You don't beat a chalil, you beat a drum. Therefore, it's very likely that the chalil referred to in the Mishnah, like the mecholot, referred to in the Shirat Hayam, at least according to Saadia Gaon's translation, are not flutes or chalilim that are reed instruments, but rather they are another form of drum or tambourine that need to be beaten in order to produce the musical sound. And that takes us to what will be the last song for today, which again may or may not have been written for the celebration of Shavuot. It doesn't specifically mention Torah. It doesn't specifically mention Bikurim, but there are enough allusions in it that we can put them all together. The song is called Mi Barechev, Mi Baregel, who is going up to Jerusalem by chariot, or if you wish, by Eged bus or by Sherut. Mi Baregel, who is going up on foot. Mi Yitzad Basach, who is marching in formation. Mi Barosh Yisah Degel, who's going to lead the line of march carrying a flag. Uvatof Miyach, and who's going to beat the drum. And here comes the refrain. Hach Batov, beat the drum. Bimitziltayim, beat the cymbals. Bashalish, some sort of musical instrument that either had 3 parts or maybe had 3 strings. Batziltseil, again, something maybe castanet, something that has a ringing sound to it, maybe a triangle. Na'alena liYerushalayim, we will go up to Yerushalayim, Sham nahola kol Hallel, and there we will rejoice and we will recite the Hallel all night long. So if you combine the idea of the beating drum leading the line of march with the idea of the march going up to Jerusalem, I think there's pretty much enough there to consider it a Shavuot song. And we'll listen to it in the rendition of Theodore Bickel. And, here it is.
Mi baregel mi tzad basach, mi varshisa regel uvatof miyach, ach batof bim tziltayim, ach batof bim tziltayim, bashali shevat tziltzel, na'alena liYerushalayim, sham nahola kol Hallel, na'alena liYerushalayim, sham nahola kol Hallel. Hey, baregel mi baregel mi tzad basach, mi varshisa regel uvatof miyach, ach batof bim tziltayim, ach batof bim tziltayim, bashali shevat tziltzel, na'alena liYerushalayim, sham nahola kol Hallel, na'alena liYerushalayim, sham nahola kol Hallel.
Okay. I put one more song on the sheet. And I'm not going to play it for you, just going to look at the words, which we've seen before, as kind of like a point of transition. This is the last class that we are having, at least at this time. I'm leaving open, I'm not making a firm commitment, but I'm leaving open the option of continuing, picking up where we left off. If arguably we've left off somewhere around the year 1948, 1949, with the establishment of the State of Israel, then perhaps we'll try again sometime in the fall to continue with some of the songs of the early State of Israel, of the 1950s and 1960s. I'll need the time between now and then to try to put this package together. So I thought that the last song here, Artza Alinu, would be a kind of transition. The words, if you wish, Artza Alinu, Artza Alinu, Artza Alinu, we're on our way up to the land of Israel. And here we go. This is the connection. Kfar Charashnu, we've gone through the time of year in which we plow. Gamzaranu, the time of year in which we plant. Aval odlo katzarnu, but we haven't gotten yet to the harvest. Odlo katzarnu, we haven't gotten to the harvest. The harvest festival biblically is the holiday of Shavuot. So I would say that kvar charashnu v'gam zaranu, we've gone through the holidays of Pesach and we're about to go through the holiday of Shavuot. Aval odlo katzarnu, we haven't gotten yet to the holiday of Sukkot. So perhaps subsequent to the holiday of Sukkot, we'll be in a position to resume I know that I have had a very delightful time over these last months sharing these songs with you, and from your comments and the like, both on the chat as well as some that I've received from you directly or through Torah and Moshe, I can see that you've been enjoying it as well. And there's, as I said, we'll take a break now, and hopefully, but yet without a firm commitment, we might be able to renew this sometime during the season of the Ketzirah, the season of the harvest in the fall. Let me take a quick look. I spoke a bit about Levin Kipnis. It was not an adult B'nai Akiva choir with mixed gender singing. It was a choir of graduates of a variety of youth movements. You may have seen that several of the gentlemen were not wearing kippot. So it probably was some sort of a festival that was held by Bogrim, by veterans or graduates of youth movements. Percussion instrument instead of beating the drum. Okay, I yield to that. Okay, tambour in Daf Yomi. Yeah, okay. Schottenstein is not the final word on the English language. I would check the passage in the Sansino before I would make a firm commitment to it, but it's certainly in the same family. Okay, that's it. Very much.
Can I ask you a question?
But very quickly, I have a commitment for which I have to leave in 3 minutes. So please, yes.
Azharot. Do Ashkenazim sing Azharot at all, like the Sephardim? Because they are.
No, we don't recite Azharot. We don't. You recite usually the Azharot, probably of Ibn Gabi Rol.
That's correct.
Personally, I prefer the Azharot of Saadia Gaon. But you know, that's a matter of taste. But no, Ashkenazim just do not recite Azharot. Certainly not as a matter of course. There may be individual Ashkenazim who do, but not usually.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sokolow. Thank you so much.
Yeah, by the way, in that book, the timely words that I've shared with you a little section on Matan Torah and the Agadah. There's actually another chapter for the holiday of Shavuot that's called the Azharot of Saadia Gaon, an exercise in Ta'amei HaMitzvot. So you can tell from it that at least one Ashkenazi read at least one form of an Azharot.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And once again, Chag Sameach to everybody and Lehitraot.
Thank you very much.
Torah and Moshe, I just want to say thank you so much. I've actually copied all of these comments to send to you, Dr. Sokolow, because they're so lovely. I'll send them to you in an email. And once again, to Chesky and Deborah Rubin for this amazing series. We're so thankful, and we look forward to seeing everybody again soon. And Chag Sameach. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Chag Sameach.